The fallout from the Dublin riots has been insane. You'd maybe hope it might be the moment that the establishment prick up their ears and say, our policies don't seem to be very popular. But no, they've doubled down, smearing anyone upset about the stabbing of children as
the far right.
The far right.
Words that are quickly losing any objective meaning. Irish politicians have even smeared the protesters as
terrorist group of people
who should be shot. You'd think Irish politicians would have a better handle on what a terrorist looks like, and left-wing journalists are actually defending the attacker. And there were shocking revelations that the attacker has a history of violence and was issued with a deportation order years ago, but NGOs helped him to stay in the country, and they did this with thousands more people like him. But the real danger? White men. The Irish government is rushing through censorship of social media platforms and harsher hate crime laws to persecute anyone who criticises their policies. And the police were sent to intimidate Conor McGregor over his tweets. But have they picked a fight with the wrong man? And will Irish people stand for all this? Right from the start, the liberal establishment scrambled to set the narrative. You wouldn't know anyone had been stabbed if you took a glance at the headlines. The BBC said, it's not clear what caused the unrest. Yeah, apparently people just spontaneously started rioting for no reason. I mean, it's hardly the greatest investigative journalism I've ever seen. Maybe the BBC could invest in an internet connection to fact-check their own stories. And look at this from the New York Times. The violence in Ireland's capital on Thursday night was fueled by far-right agitators who spread rumours online about an attack on 3 children earlier that day. Yeah, according to the media, the stabbings are just a far-right rumour. The victims must be so relieved. Politicians went further, like this Irish councillor calling the protesters terrorists. Although, when I say Irish, there's an emphasis on the ish.
And we need to do something about it. We cannot continue ignoring that this is a small minority of far-right movement. It is an organised terrorist group of people who want to harm immigrants in this country.
It's a shame she wasn't in Ireland during the Troubles. She might actually know what she's talking about. A Limerick councillor from Bangladesh has said that he would like to see the people involved in the Dublin riots shot in the head or publicly beaten until they're dead. Seems reasonable? The media immediately established that these rioters were all evil, far-right, racist, anti-immigrant thugs and were the only thing to be reported on. And let's have a look at these far-right thugs. And the names of some of those arrested. Abdul Wahab Salawi, that classic white Irish anti-immigrant name. Can I just say how wonderful it is that the anti-immigrant racist community is so diverse and welcoming of immigrants and people of other races. That is a real sign of progress. Or maybe the looting was just opportunistic scroats and had nothing to do with the protests, which were driven by public anger at the government's failure to deal with a huge influx of unvetted male migrants, many from violent, intolerant cultures that have led to a string of attacks and murders across Ireland, such as the homophobic murders of gay men in Sligo. The liberal condemnation of the Dublin protests was definitely at odds with the kid gloves treatment of BLM riots, which were described as mostly peaceful, which is a bit like calling Jimmy Savile mostly good at babysitting. Look at this average NPC. I saw some white folk on Facebook criticising the ongoing riots in the US relating to the murder of George Floyd by police, saying they should be peaceful. Yes, in an ideal world, but in an ideal world a racist police force wouldn't murder unarmed black people with alarming frequency. Let's see what he said about the Dublin riots. Absolutely feral animals who don't give a single about the victims, just looking for any excuse to loot and burn. Even though nobody was seriously hurt during the Dublin riots, but dozens of people were killed during the BLM riots. And personally, I'm a bit angrier about innocent kids getting stabbed than some fentanyl-soaked crook. But hey, I'm weird that way. Hysterical leftists tried to outdo each other in their overblown denunciations of Dublin's riots, like it was a cross between 9/11, Harambe getting shot, and that woman who put the cat in the bin. I lived through the Syrian war, but now I feel unsafe in Dublin. I mean, it sounds like you need to work on your feelings. Many Irish people feel unsafe because of the stabbing attack. Why aren't they allowed to write newspaper pieces about their feelings? And the responses were dripping with fear and loathing for white Irish people. I'll tell you what I'm scared of in Dublin right now, and that's white Irish men. White Irish men are the biggest danger for Irish women and children. I am far more afraid of young white Irish men than I am of any immigrant. White Irish men, white Irish men. You'd be arrested under hate crime laws if you said this about any other ethnicity. Someone wrote, Irish lives matter on a wall, and this was condemned as the most racist thing to ever happen anywhere, ever. The BBC gave column space to a Trotskyist organisation, balanced, called People Not Profit, who said that there's no place in our society for this kind of racist poison. We are under no illusions that Irish Lives Matter is a racist slogan which is directly counterpoised to movements against the oppression faced by black people and other ethnic minorities, they said. I mean, it seems a bit unfair. If we're going to have the oppression Olympics, Ireland is definitely in with a shot at gold. And this is what they teach kids during Black History Month. A riot is the language of the unheard. Also, imagine calling a communist organisation People Not Profit instead of Gulags Not Dinner. It's all a bit different from the years of British occupation when socialists joined in the chants of Ireland for the Irish. While the white people bad message is relentlessly pushed, the public rehabilitation of the Algerian attacker is already beginning. Here's Irish journalist Joe Brawley describing him as a gentleman.
One of the most extraordinary things was that whenever the gentleman who had attacked the children and the classroom assistant, who was badly slashed herself, he was intercepted, and whenever he'd been sort of incapacitated, 3 women took it upon themselves to protect him and probably save his life, because there was great anger at that stage.
Joe's tried to look cool by dyeing his hair, but he's at the age where it doesn't make him look non-binary. It just makes him look like he asked the hairdresser for a blue rinse. He's really working hard to redefine the meaning of the word gentle there. Why is the left like this? I swear to God the attacker will be reviewing kitchen knives in The Guardian by the end of the week. And everyone was at pains to stress how immigrants are all software engineers and neurosurgeons. Yeah, the Algerian guy wasn't stabbing people in the head, he was performing speed neurosurgery. And the Irish need migrants to wipe their arses, apparently.
Basically, we need migrant labour. We need them to do the work that Irish people do not want to do, particularly to look after our quote-unquote old people. Wipe their arses, wash them, etc.
How did Irish people wipe their arses prior to neoliberal globalism? I wonder if leftists would be deflecting the blame onto another ethnicity if the stabbing had been by a white Christian. After Raoul Moat went on a rampage, where were the leftists posting, "I'll tell you what terrifies me right now, Polynesian hill tribes"? And let's look at the stats. Algerians are overrepresented as perpetrators of crime across Western Europe. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that all North African migrants are bad. There are obviously a lot in Europe just looking for a better life, working hard and integrating. And people will say that the imbalance in crime is due to socio-economic issues. But the murders in Sligo, stabbings across Europe, motivated by socio-economic issues? The guy in Sligo wasn't targeting gay people in protest at the minimum wage. Some antipathies go deeper than that. Although Irish people aren't white anyway, according to author E. Michael Jones, who says that any Irishman who thinks he's white is a victim of identity theft. Read Noel Ignatieff, How the Irish Became White. Man, I don't need to read some weird book to see that Irish people are so white they're almost translucent. I just need to look at my wife. And the establishment clung on to the fact that one of the men who helped stop the attack was Brazilian, like it was the last life jacket on the Titanic. A Brazilian immigrant saved the day, so yay, immigration is great. Although some people might say that an optimum situation is no stabbing in the first place, rather than having different migrants fight it out on Dublin's pavements. And apparently 3 men intervened, and according to witnesses, the first man on the scene was Irish and another was French. But while the Brazilian guy was paraded across the media, the Irish guy was sidelined, with police warning him that public comments could jeopardise the case. And other white people in the vicinity were probably scared of being arrested for racist hate crime if they stopped the stabbing. Meanwhile, the Brazilian guy's GoFundMe is currently greater than the GDP of Brazil. Weirdly, leftists tried to make out that the Irish hate the Brazilian guy, which they don't. Everyone sees the Brazilian guy as a hero. Brazil is a Catholic country, of course, and Brazilians tend to integrate well in the West. Still, it's weird to see the establishment pushing the narrative that diversity is our strength at all costs. Although, not diversity of opinion, of course, everyone must think that border control is evil. Most shocking were the revelations about the attacker, who was reported as having a history of violence. He was arrested on a knife crime charge earlier this year, but released. And all the leftists bleating that, ooh, he's been in Ireland for 20 years, he's an Irish citizen. Well, the Sunday Times revealed that he was issued with a deportation order in 2003 and fought it with the help of NGOs and eventually received an Irish passport. The police are now rowing back on these claims, and it looks as though, at the moment, just as I'm recording this, that the police actually fed false information to the press to try and trip them up and make it look as if they were spreading lies. But we'll see where the truth lies over the next few days. But this is a recurring theme. NGOs, or non-governmental organisations, are activist groups that subvert democracy by influencing politicians. They convince politicians that open borders is great, and they help illegal migrants enter Europe. NGOs literally run boats back and forth ferrying men from North Africa, and once they're here, NGOs and human rights lawyers coach the migrants in how to lie to gain asylum in the West, for example by pretending to be gay or pretending to be Christian so they can't be sent back to a country where gays or Christians are oppressed. This is how Mohammed al-Swalmin managed to stay in Britain before he committed the horrific attempted suicide bombing at the maternity hospital. That's all YouTube will let me show, but you can see the rest of this video for free on my Patreon. There's a link below. And also, if you want to see me perform live, I'm doing a special Christmas show with the bad boys of comedy, the absolute mad lad Count Dankula and the bad lad of global jihad Darius Davies on December the 15th in London. It'll be an insane show. The venue's yet to be announced to stop Wet Wipes getting it cancelled, but it's central. The link's below. And if you want to support me making these videos and see more unfiltered content, then sign up to my Patreon. There's a link below. Anyway, thanks for watching. I've been Leo Kerst. Bye. Bye bye.